Welcome to the Drunken Cryptids.
Was these two globes. I don't know how to describe them. And I stood up there and looked at them, and it's like...
That how she turned and looked at me, she backed straight up to my closet door.
I just couldn't hold it anymore, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was a chupacabra. I was so excited.
I am drinking something I affectionately refer to as a Matty Rita.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Drunken Cryptids. Again, y'all know me. I'm your host, Matthew Wharton. And I got right across from me is a dear friend of mine. We've hung out quite a numerous times. We met some years ago. And he comes with a really unique perspective on all things paranormal and cryptid. And that's what I like that he brings to the table. He's laughing at me right now, everybody, just so you know that. But I'll bring him on here in a second. I got a good show lined up for you guys tonight. It's going to be a little bit different than what you're used to, but it's going to be a lot of fun nonetheless. Anyways, on with the show. So, real quick shout out to Dylan. Thank you for the new website. Man, I know it's amazing. Thank you so very much. Dylan over there at blademedia.com. If y'all need anything done, take a look at the website. Dylan did that. Amazing. If you haven't gone to drunkencryptids.com, now's your best time to check it out. Also, Gunnar, Tommy, appreciate the hard work you guys put behind there. And, of course, everybody in the back scenes. You guys know who you are. Tony, Vince. And, of course, Jacob's not with us this evening. He has got his pool league. So you're stuck with me and the secret co-host who will be showing here in a minute. But also, I know you're laughing. You're not muted. You can laugh. So anyways, though. But, again, we do have a Patreon. We do have Patreon up and running, you guys. So any 3 tiers that do appeal to you, if you want to help out the team, great. I appreciate it. There are bonus episodes up there. You get a chance to be part of the Discord and get a chance to go on some investigations with us. You also get special privileges to our special announcements, which there is a special announcement up on the Patreon right now. So Patreon members get first dibs at it. So if you want to go check it out, that's where it's at. There'll be bonus episodes. There'll be bonus... Discord opportunities, and, of course, an opportunity to come out and, like I said, do some investigations. And that's on the Patreon. All right, I am going to be at a town hall meeting in Ozark, Arkansas at the... I just drew a blank on it. Where's Jacob at? Because you don't want to post this stuff up. But, yeah, it's on the Facebook page. I am going to be speaking there. It's going to be at the Paradise Pizza Pub there in Ozark, Arkansas, on February 8th at 1 p.m. from 1 to 3. With me is going to be the Todd Neese, obviously. Todd Neese is a great guy. If y'all haven't had a chance to meet Todd yet, you're going to love him. Todd brings a whole bunch of, we're 30-plus years of research into Sasquatch. So he's going to have a lot of knowledge to share at the town hall meeting. I'll be there as well, speaking. It sounds kind of like a drug ring. Almost kind of like it'd be up your alley to look into. I'm just throwing that out there. Also, trips planned for we're going to be at the Ohio Bigfoot Jamboree on October 5th next year. That's going to be in Ada, Ohio. That's where we're going to be hanging out at. So come on up. You'll get a chance to meet me, some of the members of the team, those who make it up there. That's part of the Cryptids of the Corn podcast. And, of course, real quick shout-out to my friends over there at Nevermore Hollows. You guys know who you are. Alan, Chris, you guys are great. Love all the help and support you guys are giving me. I appreciate it. I really, really do. But it's enough of me rambling on. So my co-host this evening is a dear friend of mine, like I mentioned earlier. His name is Travis, which is fine. We can use his real name. Travis, though, what he brings unique-wise to the table when it comes to the cryptid and paranormal is that, one, Travis has never had a cryptid or paranormal encounter.
Never.
Not one time. Travis, however, is also I wouldn't say optimistic enough. I guess I would say open-minded enough to realize there could be something to it. So, but Travis comes to everything in a really unique, kind of in a black and white view. But part of that reason why that Travis does come to the table with a black and white view is because of Travis's background. Travis is a high-level authority when it comes to law enforcement running investigations. And you've been doing this for a really, really long time.
Yeah, I've been in law enforcement for coming up on 25 years.
That's a long time to be doing law enforcement. So it's actually a privilege to be able to... Well, me and Travis do this anyways. So, and normally we're pretty half-lit. A lot of times we're hanging out the pool doing it, and we would blame everything on Chupacabra. Something would happen, and we'd be like, Chupacabra. So we have lots of jokes and everything we talk about. But, now your wife, though, she's, your wife's a firm believer in this.
My wife is far more open-minded to these things than I am. I'm not going to say I'm closed-minded. I'm open to the idea that there are things out there I have not yet experienced and don't understand. But in my life, I've never experienced anything that couldn't be logically or rationally explained.
Right. But now, people are probably, they always want to know why you haven't gone on an investigation with me yet. And the truth is, you guys, because one, our weekend schedules get crazy sometimes. So, like, I saw you the other night. It was the first time you and me have actually had a chance to hang out, like 2 months, wasn't it?
Yeah, I get busy at work sometimes.
Yeah. So you get busy, and then I got the kids. So, trying to plan things around. But he is going to try and come out there to us, to our little hot spot out there in Bald Knob, once everybody lifts up their deer season. Speaking of which, did you get a chance to talk to Jacob about going up this weekend?
I'm not going to be able to.
Oh, that's right. You're going this weekend. Oh, you're busy this weekend and next weekend, aren't you?
Yes.
Because I was going to take you up north with me next weekend.
And then I'll be out of state for a work conference.
Yeah, of course. See, this is why he doesn't get a chance to go out there and experience some of these crazy things. But I do send him our evidence that we've caught. And he kind of chuckles at him. And then he'll even give me the look of, I don't know. But tonight, what we're going to do, you guys, we're, compliments of Reddit. We're going to pull up some kind of weird stories that people are posting on Reddit. It's going to be random. It could be anything from, I don't know, werewolves, vampires, who knows. I'll pull them on up. And I'm going to go over the story. Then me and Travis will sit down and discuss it. He's going to come at it from a perspective of being black and white. And I'm going to come at it from this perspective of possible, paranormal with the option of black and white. So, without further ado, Travis, you ready to get into our first story?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So this is coming from Reddit. All right. Good.
For generation.
Go ahead.
Okay. I say normally the person that does it has to buy the beer. All right. So this is coming from Reddit, and the poster, says, all right. Ironic enough, I just read that one. Yeah, we'll keep that. Yeah, we'll talk about that one.
I have a unique perspective on that one.
Cool. Say that over there. I'll let you talk about that one. See? Raw and unscripted. All right. From Reddit. All right. We'll do this one first. We'll do that one second. Redditor posted, I had a friend who lived in a very old house, pre-Revolutionary War, I think built in the 1750s, and had an imaginary friend named Billy for a few weeks when she was little. She would play dolls and pretend in her room with him. Her parents didn't think anything of it. One day, they noticed she was being pretty quiet. So they went to her room, checked in on her. She was just sitting on the ground, staring at a blank part of the wall. There's no pictures or anything. And they asked her what she was doing. And she replied, playing with Billy. Okay, a little bit odd, but kids are weird. I've got kids, you've got kids, you know that. Kids are weird. So it's probably fine. After that, she never played with Billy again. A few years later, they had to cut the drywall in her room for something and found the name Billy scratched into the beam inside the wall. They looked into it further, and apparently there was a little boy named Billy who died on the property sometime in the late 1800s. Friend has no memory of playing with Billy. Her mom told us the story when we were older. That's a little twist for you.
Well, I imagine if Billy was the kind of kid that likes to scratch things into walls, that's probably why she only played with him one time, because he was a little jerk.
No, that's a possibility. But I like the fact that you jumped right in there. We're going all right there or something. See, I told him I was going to open up with an imaginary friend story.
Right.
Because I asked him, I was like, what do y'all think? What do you think an imaginary friend is? And so, what was your thought process on that?
Only had this little caveat. I am not, nor have I ever claimed to be a child psychologist. That's not where any of my education is. But in my experience, children deal with trauma or with just the normal nature of growing up and dealing with social anxiety and changes within their lives. And they, in some subconscious way, feel the need to find companionship, and often they make that companionship up. And when they grow up, they outgrow the need for that. Again, I'm not a psychologist, but that has been my experience with kids.
Yeah, see, my little sister had an imaginary friend growing up. I can't remember what her name was. And she was real protective of this imaginary friend. And being the typical big brother that I was, I teased her about it. And she would, literally become, angry over the fact of the matter of me making fun of her imaginary friend, to where my mom would tell me to shut up. And my mom never once said that it was bad for her to have this imaginary friend. My mom almost kind of encouraged it.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with kids having an imaginary friend. I think it's a normal part of childhood for many kids. And your sister is getting upset because she probably felt that you were attacking her. This was her method of dealing with whatever she was dealing with in her life.
Yeah, true. Well, and at that time too, though, we were in a weird situation with my mom and stuff, and I'm sure my little sister kind of felt left out a lot. And so she created this imaginary friend to be her little friend as well. But, then we have like Billy. And then we can even play the Amityville Horror card too, though.
Right.
So, Jody from the Amityville Horror. I don't know. Just the imaginary friend thing with kids always kind of creeped me out to a point. Just because, one, if they did remove the drywall, if this is an actual, post, and again, this did come from Reddit, so you got to be careful of the source. And they open it up and they find the word Billy scratched into one of the beams in there from the 1800s. I mean, that's, no, I'm not a carpenter. I'm not going to pretend to be a carpenter or building, but you would think that there would have been a lot more going on building-wise from the 1800s to modern.
Well, it's plausible that a house that was allegedly built in the 1750s that had some kind of work done on the late 1800s, whether it was a restoration or something else, would not have needed any more work until whenever this story supposedly happened. But this story reeks of urban myths to me.
Yes, a lot of it does on Reddit, to be honest with you. And they're fun to read. And there's some I do think have a grain of truth to them. I really do. But this one right here, so what drives me nuts about these is the imaginary friend that being a kid.
Right.
It's where I have a hard time with kid ghosts. I just don't believe it's a kid ghost. I don't think it's a kid. I really don't. I don't think that the powers that be, God, whatever, is going to allow a kid spirit to be left behind.
Well, I have spoken with people who have told me that they have experienced the ghosts of children in a house. I have not experienced it, but there was in the city I work in, there was an incident several years ago, long time ago, where a guy killed his wife and his 2 little girls. And I responded there on alarm one time, and the neighbors came to see why the police were there in the middle of the night. Said, well, the people who live there are out of town. And I said, well, we've got an alarm. It's doing such and such. And they said, oh, it's just the girls. They set it off all the time. They claim to have seen these 2 little girls' spirits. I checked the alarm and saw nothing unusual, just like we got 45, 50 of those a night.
Yeah. Well, on that one, too. Well, so I look at that either A, because something traumatic happened in the house. So the energies could be, a residual energy could have been created there to where it's just kind of something that plays over and over and over again. Or because there's numerous stories of kid ghosts out there besides that, which is this the house you want me to go check out, by the way? No. You were telling me about that one night? Was it you that was telling me about it? No, it was my other cop friend. The house in Little Rock where something creepy. Anyways, we'll get to that one later. Yeah, welcome to the Drunken Cryptist. we get random. But when it comes to kid ghosts, I think it could either be something projecting that to be, look at me, I'm harmless. Look, I'm just a little kid. Like, I'll be honest with you, if I hear little kid voices and I'm out doing an investigation, it's not fun at all. And I've had one investigation where we did hear a kid laugh in the middle of the living room, and that was, I got excited. I'm not going to lie. My investigator freaked out, but I was like, there's something in here.
Well, kids are far more creepy than adults. We expect adults to do creepy, scary stuff. We don't expect it from children.
No, and I also I don't expect kid ghosts either. If there's a kid ghost, I think there'd be something either more, I hate using the word demonic because everybody uses the word demonic. I want to go with more of an evil presence, this, portraying that image right there of it being a kid. Because kids are still innocent.
Not all kids are innocent. I've worked cases within the last year where I can't go into details as it's still an open incident, but a very, very young child committed a heinous crime against a member of their family. And this is just a child who's just wrong. And a child that I never would have thought could be that young and do what that child did. Deliberately. Wasn't even messed up about it. There's no demon in this child. There's nothing evil in this child. This was a very sick, sick young child who had absolutely no comprehension of right and wrong.
Did he come from the upbringing, maybe?
None of the other kids exhibited that kind of behavior.
Just
I don't know.
Okay.
Again, not a child psychologist.
Right, yeah, and you're not at liberty to discuss it because it's still an ongoing
case.
It's
still ongoing.
Well, I remember when I was a teenager in Utah, we had these 2 kids, they were like 12, 13 years old, ended up killing another kid. Yeah, and left him in a cornfield. And they found the body.
This particular incident, the child was much younger than 12 or 13.
Really? That's all right. Yeah, that kind of makes me speechless. That's creepy. Very creepy.
By 12 and 13, I think it's reasonable to say that kids have been exposed to a great deal more than, say, someone half that age. And by 12 or 13, their personalities are forming a lot more. They're more heavily influenced by their surroundings, whether it's media, whether it's video games, whether it's their families, whatever it is. They've absorbed more information and are more likely to act in ways that is influenced by that information. This particular incident, that young child, I don't know what was going on that drove this child to do what was done.
Evil kids. New concept. Well, I've never, what's funny, I never put the 2 and 2 together until you brought it up. So possibly, okay, so folks, if there is a kid ghost, it's, again, I'm going to fall back on, it's probably not a good one.
I mean, look at Billy. He was carving his name and something out his wall.
Well, they said that Billy died on the property.
Probably for carving his name in the wall.
Yeah, but she never played with him again after that one time. You think about it. In the 1800s, they were always carving things on trees. They didn't have TV, so, but still. I don't know. So just the whole imaginary friend thing on that one, I think that was kind of weird.
Does the Reddit story say where this occurred?
No. On Reddit, sometimes they'll go and say, I was in Salem, or I was doing this, or I was in,
It's always Salem.
It's always Salem. Or I was in Farmington, which I don't think Salem is as bad as everybody makes it out to be. It's more commercialized now. Like if you take Bigfoot, put it on a coffee cup, you're going to sell it.
Right.
Which I've thought about doing, by the way. Our next item's out there for sale on the Drunken Cryptids. Bigfoot coffee cups. Which we will have coffee cups by the end of 2025. Because I like coffee. But that's beside the point. Okay, so that's that story. So what did you pull up?
So I actually stumbled across this a couple of years ago when the story first came out. There was a finding, and I don't have the full story pulled up right now, but in Poland, there was some sort of work being done, and they unearthed a body, a skeleton, that as they began to dig up the skeleton, they realized it was very old. And they found that it had a sickle laid across the neck of the skeleton and some chains down around the foot. And what they eventually determined was at some point in the 1600s, because of radiocarbon dating and so on, a female was buried and a sickle was placed across her neck, presumably to cut off her head if she rose from the dead. And they believed that that was a common practice when villagers thought someone was a vampire. And you're talking about Eastern Europe in the 1600s, and at the time it was during the 30 Years' War, so the late 1600s, during the 30 Years' War, a time of a great deal of violence and mayhem everywhere.
Well, before I go any further, all right, because Travis is also, man, excuse me, I lost my voice there. Explain to everybody what the 30-Year War is.
The 30-Year War was one of the numerous wars in Europe that encompassed the entire continent. They were constantly having wars over everything, constantly shifting allegiances, so on and so forth. And at the time in Poland, villagers by this point have been embroiled in constant conflict, and if they come across a problem, they're not going to want to involve the authorities, because who are the authorities? They're constantly shifting allegiances. And they're certainly not going to want to bring the church into this, because you're having constant problems with that as well. And so they're going to handle stuff themselves. And for whatever reason, they buried this young lady and put a sickle across her neck. We don't know if they killed her. We don't know what caused her to die. But it came up again recently because the people who do reconstruction of faces and whatnot recently reconstructed her face. And we can now get a good idea of what this young woman looked like, who had this done to her corpse, the sickle across the neck to keep her from rising from the dead. And as I read through that, I thought, well, that's interesting that, they're doing this. We can see what this young woman looked like. And I began to read some of the comments and people saying, oh, it's so nice that they're able to give this young woman dignity back, restore her humanity, so on and so forth. Because the automatic assumption is that these were a bunch of ignorant peasants who this woman was weird, so let's bury her and put a sickle across her neck. It's like no one ever considered maybe this chick was a serial killer. Do you ever think there might be a reason that they thought she was doing this stuff?
Well, it's funny as I read that article. I think you sent it to me. I think either you sent it to me or somebody sent it to me, and I read the article. Or I saw it somewhere. And in the process of that, I do remember that the reason why they did place a sickle across her throat, because she was originally buried,
Right.
normally. And then there were some strange deaths that took place inside the village.
Right. Yep.
And so she was the most recent person. So they looked at it
It
as...
had to be her.
Yeah, so it had to be her. And they went and placed this across her throat to make sure... No, they dug her up, put the sickle across her throat, so she was a try and rise again that would cut her throat off. And, of course, a lot of people do think that, back then, 400 years ago, like you said earlier, that these were ignorant people, and they weren't. I mean, these are people who knew how to farm. They knew how to hunt. They knew the land. They
Absolutely.
They were smart. They knew the wheel. They knew everything. We look at them as ignorant because we have houses and electricity, and we're on the internet, and we have automobiles. These people back then, though, they had the paranormal and the supernatural was a way of life. It was everything was a way of life. What I learned today about eggnog, the origins of eggnog of all things, and it came from, believe it or not, there was a drink that the royals would use. The upper class would mix this drink, and it would be to like cement weddings and ceremonies and stuff. Well, they got over here, colonized, and they couldn't fully do it, so they changed it up and added sugar and rum, and they put it in milk because it would not spoil the milk.
Right.
So they were able. So that's where eggnog came from.
Well, I really like eggnog. So every time I drink it, I'm going to feel royal as all get out.
There you go. But no, when it comes to this vampire lady, though, you're absolute. She could have been a serial killer. She could have been this because also a lot of these towns did keep really good, accurate records, but war,
Right.
burnings.
There's a reason those people felt that she was a threat.
Maybe she was a vampire.
And it's plausible that they were ignorant and that she was just different somehow and they lashed out against her. That's plausible. But it's also plausible that this chick was crazy and that she had killed some people and done crazy stuff like drink their blood. I work criminal investigations involving death, and I'm telling you, there's nothing you can think of that people won't do to other people. I've seen it. I've been doing this job for a long time. And when I read that, I thought they had a reason to want to keep her from coming back.
Yep.
Now, I'm not casting shade on this young lady because it may not be the case. She may be perfectly innocent in all of it. And not that I think she's around, but I don't want her vampire ghost coming over here and coming up to me and say, "Hey, you've been talking smack. I brought my little ghost friend Billy, and we're going to start carving crap on your walls." We don't need all that nonsense.
She'd just be showing up asking for a cup of sugar. That's all.
But it's incredibly arrogant in 2024 for us to look at people in the 1600s and automatically assume they were somehow backwards when they were not. It was just an advanced civilization. As you said, they had advanced farming techniques. They lived in very nice structures. These were not ignorant people. Literacy rates were far better than people give them credit for.
Yep.
And so there's a reason they did that.
I concur. She's a vampire.
She's something.
She's a vampire. But she's also not the first body that we've found excavated that's either have been staked.
Correct.
I mean, buried upside down. Numerous cages put over the graves. So if they do try and rise up, they're not able to get out. So where does that lore come from?
I think that lore comes from people not understanding the psychological conditions that drive people to commit the most heinous crimes that are outside the scope of a normal crime. Understand, crime's not normal. It's inherently abnormal. But we all have a level of, that's an acceptable crime. A gangbanger driving by a house, shooting up another gangbanger, that's an acceptable crime because it makes sense to us. It's tragic if an innocent person gets shot, but again, it makes sense to us.
What do you think it makes sense is because we're used to it now?
Yes.
Because how often it does happen in our society?
Right, and that's the point I'm making.
Okay.
So if you're in Poland in the 1600s, you're in Eastern Poland, and you're living in wherever this village was, you can accept that someone was killed for regular reasons. They got into a disagreement, they had a fight, someone got killed. There's a war going on. You had people come through raping and pillaging, people got killed, that kind of thing. You can wrap your head around that sort of thing. But when you come across, and again, this is all hypothetical, when you come across a killing or an act of violence that is so outlandish and so outside of what you've come to know as a normal degree of criminality, you have to try to rationalize it. And they chose to rationalize it in ways that capitalized on their mythology. And the mythology of the vampire, the mythology of werewolves, things of that sort, made sense. So the human mind wants to put things in neat little boxes. So when we have someone who is doing serial killer type stuff or drinking blood or doing the various things that human beings do without any need for them to be supernatural, they're just clearly sick, mentally ill, whatever you want to call it, they had to understand it in the best way they knew how.
Okay. Well, one, you're right. So on that token too, though, about 400 years ago, okay, out there in Europe is another famous one. So if we're talking about, heinous crimes and, what people are going to think and how it happens. If I script the last name, it's on me. It's Elizabeth Bathory. Now, she was a Hungarian noblewoman, close to Poland, and she reigned from, she was born in 1560, and she was killed in 1614. All right? And she imprisoned all these young noble women. She was trying to create like a school for them. She was going to educate them, but she was very vain. And so she believed that by drinking and bathing in their blood was going to keep her young.
Right. And there's nothing supernatural about her belief.
No. But when it comes to blood, but the point is, so what if, same time frame now, with this young lady in Poland with the sickle, there was a huge vampire craze going through Europe as well. Because Vlad, Dracula wasn't written until the late 1800s, early 1900s. I don't have the date in front of me right off the bat, but Vlad the Impaler reigned from, thank you, Google. This is what I love about the Drunken Cryptids. We start on one thing and we end up with a whole bunch of, different topics. He was 1400s.
Yeah, it was during one of the Turkish invasions.
Yeah,
of Romania.
1431 to 1476.
Right.
So Vlad was before that. But he didn't really get credit for like vampirism or anything until this didn't really start coming in until about the 1500s, about 100 years after Vlad. So on that token, too, of being heinous crimes, though, what do you think was driving, with your background, and tying into some of these old legends and lore of, potential cryptids in history? I mean, do you think it is coming from the fact of the matter of, societal crime from then?
I think it's coming from people's need to fit things they don't understand into a box.
Okay.
They reach out for something. How can I make this make sense? How can I make it make sense that this young woman who I've known her whole life, I've known her since she was a child, I watched her grow up. She's now 19, 20 years old. I don't know how old she was when she died. How can I make it make sense that she did that to that small child? That she did that to her husband, that she did that. How can I make that make sense? Well, clearly it's not her fault. She's become a vampire, and it's no fault of her own, but we can't let her murder anyone else.
Or possessed by a demon.
Or possessed by a demon.
In league with death.
Right, because at that point, they didn't understand things like adult onset schizophrenia, dissociative disorder, things that will begin to manifest in your early 20s. And sometimes a person can be perfectly normal, perfectly rational, and then snap. Something happens, and my wife likes to use the term, their cheese falls off their cracker, and they just go. I've worked killings like that, where that's exactly what happened. You had a perfectly rational, healthy person with no violent history, no history of any kind, and one day they just went and killed their family. Or worked a case where a guy literally cut chunks of his own flesh out of his legs, put them in Ziploc bags, and put them in the freezer. Because the devil told him to. I don't think the devil actually walked into his living room and said, hey, man, really could use some Ziploc bags full of leg right now. Why don't you put it in there? He also cut his own penis off and put it in the freezer.
Oh, wow.
Because he just snapped, and it was an acute onset psychotic episode.
Well, okay, so on that note, when you said the devil came in and told him to do this stuff, I mean, so looking at it from a paranormal viewpoint on that one, do you think it's possible that maybe something did? Maybe there was something, I mean, because I know you guys, when you research this, you research the background. I mean, do you ever research up where strange religious beliefs, strong religious beliefs, lack thereof? I mean, does any of that come play in anything?
Totally average guy.
Okay.
Totally average guy, no real family history of it.
Okay, so it wasn't like a diehard churchgoer or anti-churchgoer or
Nope.
anything like that? Okay. Yeah, I'm only asking because, from the paranormal side, that's
Right.
intriguing to me when
It's-
somebody says that the devil came in or a spirit or entity or...
When I teach homicide and death investigations to young investigators or young police officers who are just beginning to start their law enforcement careers, one of the things I drive is there's nothing you can imagine. There's nothing so horrible you can imagine that a human being will not do to themselves or other people.
That's a fact.
And it's true.
That's a fact. Yeah, humans are horrible to humans.
Or animals.
Yeah, definitely animals. There's numerous cases of that one, which obviously everybody sees, leads up to the signs of going into serial killers and stuff like that.
Right.
Young age or mutilating, small animals. They get larger and larger and larger, and then they obviously go to people. So, and I think we've been lucky in here where we're at that we haven't had one that we know of, or that I know of. Wait, there was a stabber, I think it was a couple of years ago. Wasn't that stabber? And the guy was dressing up as a superhero, challenged him to meet him on the bridge or something like that. Remember? Do you remember that?
I'm aware of those incidents, yes.
Okay, I figured you would be. But my favorite part, though, was the superhero guy, and on this side of the river was like...
Dark Star, Dark something,
Yeah,
or whatever
yeah.
the heck he called himself.
We'll
Yes.
meet like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning on the bridge or something like that. Yeah.
I recall hearing something about that.
Yeah, he disappeared. I wonder where he went. I think I heard that he moved like somewhere. Somebody like bought him a car, and he actually went and got a job. And
The superhero guy?
yeah, superhero guy. Yeah, there's-
I certainly hope he did not effectively meet a person who was killing other people.
no, so do I. But from what I understand, he's still alive, and he went out and
I wish him nothing but the best.
no, it was still.
I hope he's living a happy, healthy life somewhere.
He actually had. Well, this. He actually had like other people trying to join him and stuff.
I'm aware.
They had like their own little Marvel
Little-
gang.
Their little Justice League, which, hey, man, you do you.
That was great. Walking around. That was y'all miss that. I love where we live. I really do. No, this is actually fascinating. I'm not gonna lie to you. I love getting this is really good. Because what we can start doing maybe is looking throughout history, breaking things down from your experience, your knowledge of what you have with your background. And we can look at some of these cases, and you can probably look at it, go like the famous what the Hills Have Eyes. So we've all known the movie The Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah, I'm
based
actually not
upon-
familiar with the incident.
Yeah, so the incident for that one actually took place in. Thank goodness for Google. I told you, raw and unscripted. Let's see here. Hills Have Eyes influence. It was a family that would catch these people, these travelers coming through. Let's see here.
I've never even seen the movie.
It's really, really weird.
I don't particularly enjoy horror movies.
Yeah, it's actually come from Scotland.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm familiar with the historical story
The
that the Rob Zombie...
Swanee Bean.
Yes.
Yeah, the Scottish cannibal Swanee Bean and his
Yes.
family, and they would capture travelers and absolutely just eat them.
Yeah, and I'm only familiar with it because I read an article about it a couple of years ago. I read a lot of history just for fun. And yes, now that you mentioned it, I do recall. And I recall one of the points of the article is that their story has become grossly exaggerated over the years. And
Yes.
they were definitely doing some heinous stuff. There's no question, but not the degree to which they're credited now.
Yeah, because allegedly, Alexander Swanee Bean is a legendary figure said to have been the head of a 45-member clan in Scotland in the 16th century. We keep going back to the same time period.
And the Scots are my people.
Yes, they are. That murdered and cannibalized over 1,000 people in 25 years. And I don't think it's 1,000 people. I think 1,000 people missing in that time frame would kind of go a little bit more noticeable. We didn't have that much of a population.
Well, the population was larger than you'd think, but
Again, we had all the wars going on. But
you had lots of wars going on, and you had, at that point, people leaving to go to the New World. And it's not like they checked out with their local agency to say, hey, man, I'm going to New England.
yeah, true. Well, yeah, right there in the 16th century. 25 years. So that's kind of curious. What do you think inspires that?
Well, Scotland's cold, wet, and rainy all the time, and they're always pissed off at the English, so he's probably grumpy.
Yeah, but why? Yeah, but eat people? I mean, I get that, but why eat people?
People taste better than haggis.
Yeah, I guess. Sorry, quoting Highlander here soon.
No, that's another one of those things that we try to rationalize this. How do we fit someone grabbing travelers and cannibalizing them? What box do we fit that in? Because that's irrational. That's not something that makes any sense to us. And you have a family that was doing it, a large extended family that was doing it. That doesn't fit in any box that we have.
No.
Is it somehow paranormal? Is it somehow evil? I don't think so. I think it's human behavior that has just gone way off the rails.
Okay, so what then would you, in your field of work, what would you consider paranormal? Look into history, look at the historical stuff, because you are open-minded about this stuff. So what cases in history would you say would have some paranormal ring to them? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Well, no, I mean, this isn't something I think about a lot because I don't dive into the paranormal that often.
Which is funny because I know your wife, and I'm surprised she doesn't make you watch all these shows.
Oh, she watches them. I just don't. I'll sit in the chair and read a book or whatever. She watches all the Annabelle doll movies and the married couple that hunts the ghosts. And
Oh, yeah.
all that nonsense. And
I'm actually
it's
working
just-
an episode right now about the Amityville Horror.
Yeah, it's just not my taste. I don't discount it. If you enjoy those movies, man, you rock on. You do you. It's just not my taste. I don't like horror movies. I never
Yes.
have.
Yes.
It's not what I watch.
Love them. I don't know why I love them.
Yeah, she would watch them every day. I'm good. I just don't enjoy them. I've heard stories through the years, and again, I've not really done a deep dive into any of it, of ghost sightings at some of the battlefields. You always hear about it at Gettysburg. I've heard about it at Pea Ridge. Never experienced it. I've been to battlefields quite a bit. I've never experienced anything. But you do hear about that kind of thing. And I think that if there's any truth to it, if there are people who were unsettled and didn't move on, because I do believe we have a soul, and I do believe that it goes somewhere when we die, and it's plausible that some people, they weren't ready to make that journey for
Right.
whatever reason. And they're bound to a location. I think it's plausible. I've never experienced it, but I'm not arrogant enough to say that just because I've never experienced something means it isn't true.
Well, it's like Vince. Vince has been to numerous haunted locations, never had an encounter like the Crescent. And he's one of the few people that I've ever spoken with about the Crescent Hotel here who's been there who did not have an encounter.
I think, though, if you go to the Crescent wanting to have an encounter, guess what you're going to have?
Well, okay, so
You're going to have an encounter.
on that token, so what's funny is that Sammy's mom, okay? So Sammy's grandparents on her mom's side, her grandma is big in this stuff, right? So she likes the show, she likes everything. I get along, we get along great.
Sure.
Now, her grandpa, on the other hand, on that side, does not believe in it. He rolls his eyes. Me and him, numerous conversations when we were together about this. And he would roll his eyes, and he was a black and white kind of guy. Nope. Well, my ex and her brother, for their anniversary, decided to give them, for their mom's birthday, to, pay for a room, go to the Crescent, go have a good time. Go check out the Crescent Hotel. And her mom was all excited about it. So they came back, and this is when I was dating her before we got married. And I'll never forget, they came back, and I looked right at Sammy's grandpa, and I was like, well, how was it? And he looked at me dead in the eye, and he goes, that place is haunted. And I went, what? And he goes, yep. So he told me, he said, she had gone to bed, she was asleep, and he said, I was right there getting ready, I lay down, getting all cozy and comfortable. And he goes, room got cold, and somebody put their hands on the bed. And I went, I'm sorry, what? He goes, yeah, somebody put their hands on the bed, and there was somebody behind me. And I was like, really? He goes, I was afraid to turn around. So this is coming from a guy who doesn't believe in any of this stuff.
Sure.
And goes up there and has an encounter.
And I would never try to discount someone else's experiences.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he didn't experience that. I wasn't there. I'm
Sure.
saying I've never experienced it. But I also think if you go somewhere like that and you're all hyped up, ready to see something, and you're going to see something that does not immediately make sense, and go, it's a ghost.
Well, so on that token, too. So, all right, let's talk about Reed's Bridge, because we talked about this briefly the other night. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you know the history, because this is your cup of tea.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, all the buildings that are out there are not the real structures. We know that.
Right.
The battle did take place there. Cans were fired back and forth. Nobody died?
There were a few casualties, yeah, but there weren't very many.
Yeah, so I was about to say.
I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but very few died.
Yeah, I had it there on that night we were out there. I don't have it in front of me now either.
Very minor engagement. All it really did was slow down the advancing Union forces for a day.
Yeah, coming to Little Rock.
Yep.
But the thing is that so while we were out there, I had nothing, absolutely nothing, nothing. I'm be honest with you, I was kind of bored. Some of the other folks with me felt some things and stuff like that, and we had one person with us who completely skeptic, doesn't believe in any of this at all, got touched. There was nothing or anything there at all, and got touched. I mean, to where it made this person extremely emotional afterward for about 20 minutes. You know, I'm not talking like hysterical,
right?
But just kind of, you know, you get overly emotional and stuff. It's only that happens. So, I wonder if somebody's here. I'm gonna bet someone. That's why he's throwing a fit, because that's just in my mindset. You know, what happens,
right?
So, but I was kind of curious though, because looking back through history and some of these weird crimes that people, you know, obviously, you know, are going to claim that we're due to the paranormal. Europe is full of them, obviously. You know, when it comes to all this stuff. I mean, the big thing was, too, though, at that time was nothing but vampirism. There was a huge wave of vampirism and then witches.
Right.
You know, and it was, you know, somebody got the flu, all of a sudden there's a witch, you know.
Yeah, it couldn't just be a virus.
Exactly. But
Well,
they
didn't
fully
understand what a virus was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they weren't ignorant. They just didn't. Exactly.
Yeah, they didn't know what it was. And again, we try to make rational sense of something.
Exactly. Well, let me try and pull up another one real quick here on Mr. Reddit that you might enjoy. Let's see here. No. Well, real quick, what's your favorite time era of history?
Civil War.
Any particular reason?
Well, my father was a history teacher, and I grew up surrounded by history. He didn't really teach Civil War a whole lot, but he taught 19th century European and American history. And I'm sure we just talked about it a great deal. And when I went to college, the Civil War and 19th century American military history was the area I really focused down on. And I've always found it interesting. I also like ancient history, ancient Greek and Rome. But the Civil War era is probably the era where I read the most.
Okay. As big fans of the miniseries and the history of it when I was younger, to where when I was in the service, I was actually reading. My company commander came up to me and I had a book out about the Civil War, and we spent probably about. I was just a PFC at the time. We spent probably about a good hour and a half discussing, you know, the politics and everything,
Sure.
the policies that came through. And I think at that moment in time is when I really got involved in the politics.
Yep.
You know, trying to, you know, because he opened my eyes up to a whole bunch of different things. But the show's not about politics. But, you know, history in itself will, you know, obviously, you know, make you, you know, learn a lot. I keep hearing noises out there.
That was an acorn falling. It was nothing very normal.
I think it's the squirrels, well, or the Fey folk. Because me and the squirrels, well, the squirrels mess with Jack, and the Fey folk mess with me.
I think squirrels are fey folk.
You know, would not surprise me. Poor Peanut. I'll just leave it at that one. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't look at not you. All right, let's see here. I'm trying to get us a really good one here, and for some reason Reddit's not helping me out. Here we go. All right, we're gonna get into one here in a second. All right, let's see here. All right, here's a good one. This is a haunting one. All right, this from Reddit again. All right, and doesn't have their name. It said, Redditor says, when I was 12 or so, still living at my parents' house. Obviously, if you're 12, I'm going to hope you're still living at your parents' house.
I'm glad they added that caveat.
Yeah, I'm glad you added that still. Okay. I woke up in the middle of the night to pee. I got to the bathroom, heard what sounded like a party going on downstairs. Laughter, music, the sound of glasses being knocked together for a toast. The whole shebang. They actually wrote in their shebang. I thought it was weird that my parents had friends over so late and hadn't told me. But I decided to go and see who was there. Opened the door to the kitchen, and the entire downstairs was completely dark and silent, not even a TV on. I was thoroughly confused, but the strangeness of the situation didn't really register, so I never told anyone. Years and years later, I mentioned this to my dad, and he said he had heard them too. And them is in parentheses, by the way. Turns out there used to be a small public bar in their home, which is over 150 years old. I guess some of the patrons decided to hang out for eternity. Now, my favorite part of that is I'm 12 and I'm still living at home.
As one would expect.
Yes.
So let's just pretend for a moment that there are some sort of unsettled bar patron spirits hanging out in their living room because when they died, they said, you know where I really liked to go when I was alive was this particular bar. I'm going to go take my ghost stuff and I'm going to go hang out there. Okay, let's assume that's accurate. Or the drinkware was also a ghost? Is it like a ghost mug? Yeah, we're hearing the glasses clinking together.
Uh-huh.
When you break a glass, does it have a ghost that it becomes a ghost? It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd.
Well, on that token, too, though, what if it's residual, though?
Residual what?
Residual energies. So the energy is trapped in. So, okay, so I'm going to say anything with high emotional place involved in it. Anything with a high emotional place involved in it. Whether it be happiness, anger, love, murder, weddings, anything. But you have over time, people in there, high energy, alcohol flowing, people having a good time, high energy. What if that gets trapped? And so what he was experiencing there was actual, residual. So it's like a record player that's got a scratch in it. It goes over and over. Once it circles around, it kicks it again. Circles around, it kicks it again. Circles around, plays it again.
This is where you really dive into my skepticism.
That's the point.
I know that. I'm open to the idea that sometimes people's souls aren't necessarily ready to pass on, as we have discussed.
Well, I'm not saying these are dead people there. I'm saying what it is. Their
the
energies, the memory of it is trapped.
Yeah, I just don't buy that.
You say you have a hard time with that one?
Yeah, that's...
See, that's one of my favorite theories, though, is because everything is all of energy. I'm energy, you're energy, everything's energy. And I do believe with positive, negative, happiness, sadness, all that can actually leave an impression, at least an impression on us.
Sure.
As who we are as people. So why couldn't it leave an impression on an area? Why couldn't it leave an impression
an area
on...
is not sentient.
No, it's not.
I have this tumbler that I've been drinking of. This is the sound of ice bouncing around in it, all right? That sound is caused by sound waves, and those sound waves are going out. And guess what? I can do this nonstop for 100 years, well, assuming the ice doesn't melt. And when I stop, those sound waves are going to dissipate.
True.
There's nothing trapping them here. There's no bizarre force
that's going
to say, you know what? This particular tumbler full of ice was so cool and so emotional that I just have to be here forever. That's where you really get into my skepticism.
Was that the fire truck?
I don't know what that was.
No, I don't know if anybody heard that either, but that was loud. Got quiet real quick. Jacob showed up on the scene, folks, so he's just hiding in the corner. We're putting Jacob in the corner. Just letting y'all know that. Because, Jacob, he's here now.
He did not warn me there were going to be sound effects.
I only do sound effects.
I was wondering who the hell was behind me.
I just only do sound effects whenever it's just us talking and there's nobody on the phone. Because they can't hear the sound effects.
Oh, they can't?
No, so...
Oh.
Yeah, so...
Well, y'all are missing out.
Yeah, no, so the call-in interviews, so when I do the sound effects, they'll hear it when they play it back, the episode. And I learned that because I think I had Jacob on the phone. I was like, can you hear this? Like, oh, you don't hear anything. I was like, okay, I don't know what it is.
So if you play the sound effects enough time, does it cause residual sound effect energy and you don't have to play it anymore?
There's only
it's
one way to find out.
It's just automatically there?
Only one way to find out.
We have ghost sound effects?
No, I haven't set that up yet. But I'm going to. But no, so your mindset is no residual. The kid loses his mind. It's a made-up story. None of that took place.
I didn't say that.
No, I'm just going to believe there's no residual.
I said it's not very... I can't imagine any explanation for any kind of residual energy that would have the sounds of sound waves. Just like when people say they've gone to battlefields and they've heard the gunshots and so on and so forth. I don't buy that. I think they're hearing something and
Jacob
they're
heard
trying
the
to
cannon fire.
they're trying to make an explanation of it. I can buy that there may be some unsettled souls in places where they died a violent death or experienced something that they weren't ready to leave, so on and so forth. I'm open to that.
Okay, what about a time slip? See, I keep going down the rabbit hole.
You can see the look on my face.
Oh, I can. They can't.
Now understand, again, I'm not so arrogant to say that I have all the answers, because I do not. But I'm pretty darn skeptical of that stuff.
Well, that's the bones you're supposed to be, in all honesty. And being a believer and a skeptic, I think, is what is going to gain more and more evidence. Like, I'm a skeptic. Honestly, I am the biggest skeptic in the world. And Jacob will tell you that. When things are off air, I'm a skeptic.
Right.
I'm going to question, I'm going to ask. And that's why I go out and do investigations. That's why I go out and research areas.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do in an investigation, is question and ask.
Exactly.
Challenge everything.
As like I said before, before I became a field investigator, I was an armchair investigator. Like what you do, reading, doing up the history, studying everything. And so that way, when you do go into an area and there is a potential cryptid or potential paranormal, you're educated on what it could be. And by going through it, it's, over and, I don't know, you just know it. So I don't believe that everything out there is going to be Bigfoot in the woods. And there's definitely not every house is haunted. And, when you go, like, my encounter at Reeves Bridge, I mean, it was a lot of fun. And we're actually going to record a Patreon episode for that really soon with the people that did have experiences out there. So
I'm not saying no one had experiences.
Oh, no, I didn't have an experience. All I know is that me and Chris were looking at one point, and that's when somebody got touched and everything else like that. And was trying to, figure it out. And then we had our other investigator, seeing something. I'm not trying to give away that episode, but yeah, it was quite interesting.
So if you're touched inappropriately by a ghost, or you do some compensation,
well, I got touched.
You can call a ghost lawyer.
You know what? We know one.
I will say right now that my bourbon glass is empty, and I wish there was some residual ghost bourbon I could fill my glass back up with.
Well, I got beer down there, so about all I can get you. Because I got whiskey upstairs, so I'm afraid to keep the whiskey down here.
That's probably a good choice.
I don't want to bring it down here. I don't want to get ruined outside.
Yeah. Now, if you're going to investigate things, whatever they are, whether they're cryptozoology, whether they're paranormal, whether they're homicides, whether it's burglaries, you have to go in and question everything, because that's part of the process by which we figure out the truth. And ultimately, an investigator's job is to find truth. That's what we do. It's what I do professionally, is we find truth. And we do everything we can to find that truth. And if we can't prove it as truth, then it's not something that we can move forward with in a criminal investigation. We have to be able to prove it.
Right.
Whereas in the types of investigations y'all do, you're looking for that proof, you're looking for that truth. But in the absence of it, you can still go forward. You can still learn from it and perfect what it is you're trying to do, and still gain experiences that help you in your next investigation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If every time someone went out in the woods and they said, "Oh, I had a Bigfoot encounter. I went out in the woods 100 times last year and I had 100 Bigfoot encounters." Well, that's bull crap. Because if they were that prevalent, if we assume for a moment that Bigfoot are real, and I'm not saying they are, I'm not saying they are not, but if every time somebody went in the woods they saw them, well, yeah, there'd be more frequent than bears.
See, that's been my argument for a long time as well on that one. But, for me, sitting here, with the microphone in the podcast, and I have people come on the show and they talk about their encounter stuff, I give them every bit of belief, because one, they're not getting anything from it, and for a lot of folks it takes a lot of courage to come up here and go, hey, this happened to me, and I don't know what it was. And so what I like about, from your perspective on everything, though, is that you can bring in that black and white viewpoint, which is why, you and me have talked about other episodes, stuff like that, and I want to get your opinion on a couple things.
Right.
And it was the same, and to where with what I do and what the team does, and I'm going to drag you out there in the woods with us. I am. I want that hard evidence that I can take to court, that I can get it prosecuted. You know what I mean? That put in your lingo. So I can have that out there, because, with my encounters that I've had, there's some weird shit out there.
Oh, the world's full of weird things that we cannot yet understand.
Well, of course, science. Well, magic is just science that we haven't, discovered or proven yet. I can't remember the full quote that it was, but that's
right. That's true to a degree, but sometimes magic is crap that people are making up to explain things that have perfectly logical explanations. It just doesn't fit in the box that they have.
Yeah, we just I take those out.
Yeah.
I don't look at those. I look at the weird, the lights in the sky, and what was that thing that walked through the woods, and why did my glass move from one side of the counter to the other, and I watched it slide. Those kind of things.
Let me give you an example of people want things to fit in a particular box. We frequently find ourselves professionally dealing with bodies in advanced stages of decomposition. Okay, whether that's in the woods or in a house or so on and so forth. And someone who's not experienced in investigating that will look at the circumstances and say, man, there's no way this person died in that position. They were moved after they died. Or this right here is clearly, how'd their arm bone end up way over there, so on and so forth. Whereas those of us who have been trained and have experience, we can look at it and go, no, that's perfectly normal. That's insect activity. You'd be amazed how much maggots can move bones. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't believe it until you've seen it. Animal predation. We had one where a raccoon got into this guy's trailer and ate his ear off. And it took us a little bit to figure out that's what it was because we don't know how the raccoon got in there. But when we sent him to the medical examiner, they're like, yeah, there's totally raccoon bites. So there's usually a logical explanation. It's just something that people don't have all the information to make that informed decision on what it is that they're looking at.
Right. So that's the paranormal. So when every logical explanation is gone through and there isn't one, that's where...
That just means I don't know the logical explanation.
Okay, so have you had a case or heard of a case to where there was no logical explanation? There was, nothing.
For the physical aspects of the scene?
We'll just go with yes on this one. So I'll let you pick and choose on this one. Like, something not, to where there's nothing about it makes sense. Nothing does.
No, there's always something that makes sense.
Illogical. Nothing.
Now, I've had cases where we don't know why this person was killed. We don't know. There's no reason for them to have been killed that we can find when we do a victimology. We've had cases where we don't know why this person was injured, so on and so forth.
Okay, you said victimology, so let the audience know what that is.
Okay, victimology is essentially a diving into who the victim of a crime was and learning everything you can about them as a person, their social habits, their economic habits, the people they hang out with, everything that they do. So you learn everything you can about them as a person to figure out what was going on in their life at the moment of that violent encounter, what factors may have contributed to that, which factors may have led other people to contribute to that, and that's victimology.
Awesome. Okay, so back to it. So
every crime scene I've ever been to.
Yeah, I'm not saying what you've experienced.
Every crime scene I've experienced or read about, there's always some explanation for why something was the way it was.
Okay. Last one for you.
I find that unlikely, but go ahead.
Well, last one for the show.
Oh, okay.
All right. Last one for you for the show. Jack the Ripper.
Okay.
What's your thoughts?
I've not read a lot on it.
Really?
Yeah, I've read a little bit. There was a book, and I forget the author's name. It was called Jack the Ripper Case Closed, and I don't remember who wrote it. And I read it, I was in college, so it was a really long time ago because I'm getting old. And that particular author had some really interesting points in who she believed the killer was based on some art that this person had done that very closely mirrored some of the crime scenes. I don't know what you're asking me what I think. I think it was a person who had deep-seated psychological issues.
No, I agree.
There's nothing supernatural about Jack the Ripper.
No, but the Jack the Ripper to me has always been kind of like this really neat... I'm not in the serial killers or anything like that at all, but the case of Jack the Ripper to me was always really fascinating.
Oh.
For just how the crimes happened, where they took place at, and doing some of my own research, amateur research, obviously, and learning to where there was a possible American that did it, and because there were some crimes that took place over here in New York, I believe it was, that mirrored what took place over there.
Well, there was a novel called The Alienist that was written by Caleb Carr probably 20, 25 years ago that posited that theory. And in his novel, his character was doing stuff very similar in New York.
All right. Sweet.
Great novel. I'm not being paid by Caleb Carr to push the book. It's just a really good novel.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, man, thanks for coming on, brother.
Of course.
All right, I appreciate it. And guys, again, that's another episode. Stay safe out there. Watch out for the crazies. And if you've had an encounter and you want to talk about it, email me, dragoncryptids@gmail.com. Follow me on other social media platforms. All of them. Also, give us a 5-star review. Leave a comment. We'll give you a shout out on the air if you leave a good comment. All right. So until next time, y'all stay safe.
King of the world. I can do anything that I want. I can do anything that I want now. I can do anything that I want.